And hi, everybody. Welcome to Proline, direct from Las Vegas. I'm Dave Cook and joined by Jim Feist. We're going to take a look ahead to Week 8 of the college football campaign, plus get into the NFL Week 7. First, Jim, if people want to subscribe to this channel, well, it's very easy to do, and they get free bonus materials as well.
Absolutely, Dave. Go to ProlineTV.com, click on the subscribe button. You'll get notifications on new videos, plus you'll be sent a code to get 7 days of my service absolutely free. That's ProlineTV.com.
All right, I had an enjoyable football weekend. Saturday was up and down, but I had a big win over Oregon State, and then Sunday swept the board. So that was really enjoyable. I've got a good special: football and baseball playoffs, and here's the special part of it: the rest of October for $29, and I'm going to include one of my big plays that will not be available online any place. Okay, my plays, most of my plays, you can find at various websites. This play will only be for my personal service clients. You will get this play as part of this special. $29, it's a great offer. Make sure and call 855-472-2577. Jim, you're now 13-4 in football with the High Rollers. That was the Colts-Texans game going over the total, and the Chiefs rolling past Oakland 26-10. That was a sharp side. You're basically giving away 5 days of big nickel plays now.
It's a big offer. It's 5 straight days of $500 high roller releases for just $99. Just call 866-546-9467. 2 weeks ago, it was Vikings rolling 31-13 over Houston. Sunday, it was easy cover with the Chiefs winning big. Part of a 9-2-1 NFL weekend after the Cardinals won Monday night. 5 straight days, $500 high roller releases, 5 days for just $99, 866-546-9467.
All right, so let's talk about a few different things here, and we're going to look at some games, obviously. We'll start talking, revenge. You hear this all the time. Oh, it's a revenge game for so-and-so. I think there's special circumstances where I put some weight into revenge, but for the most part, in football, I don't put much into it at all. Not the same as college basketball. Same season revenge, I think, is definitely a factor. Conference teams that meet twice a year, it's a different sport. It has to be handicapped differently. But in football, I think it's kind of a lesser consideration.
Well, in colleges, teams don't play twice.
Right.
Usually. I mean, there are circumstances where they might, but it doesn't usually happen.
So it's usually revenge from the prior year.
Yeah, that's right. So
a lot of the players aren't even there anymore.
Yeah, a lot of that, and the coaches sometimes change. They're always moving around. But in the NFL, where the in-division games,
yep,
that does matter as far as revenge, because these division games, which we're going to talk a little bit about, conference and division games a little bit also, but they mean a lot. So when you get beat up by a division rival, and then you get that team again, whether home or away, you're usually more motivated for that game than you are for others.
Yeah, and one of the things I like to do in the college is, because there are ways to determine how much revenge really matters. Read the beat writers, because they're getting quotes from the players, and sometimes the players make a point of saying, we remember last year, we really want this game. Well, revenge might matter a little more there. But the other side of the revenge that you've got to remember is usually it's the better team that won, and they might just be the better team again.
Sometimes the quality of the club, you can't get revenge because you just don't have the talent to do it.
All right. So here, speaking of revenge, Alabama, they didn't have too much trouble with Texas A&M last year. I think it was 41-23 at College Station. They will play again this weekend, so A&M has revenge. I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot.
Well, the point spread is big.
Well, sure, yeah.
16 up to 18.5. It needs to be. There is a point. I mean, if you made the game 38, you might say, hey, that's a little bit much. So there is a point at which you're going to start to look at the underdog here, even though we know they don't have as much talent. So, but look at this stat. I mean, when you look at what Texas A&M gave up to Tennessee, 684 yards against A&M a week earlier, and then Alabama just crushed Tennessee. When you look at that and you say, oh my God, Alabama's just way too good
Alabama's,
for anybody.
I think they are way too
Yeah.
good, and they got to take the game seriously. John Cranton, who was here last week in Jim's place and does a lot of research for us, he always comes up with some nuggets. Check this out. A&M, 18-44-1 against the spread versus a winning home team. Now, it does tell you something. I mean, it's obviously long-term, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to play out each year that way. But what it does indicate is that for quite some time, when A&M has had to step up in class on the road, they have not been able to get the job done. I think that's kind of the case this weekend.
Well, and also, this is a newcomer to the SEC.
Yeah.
And in the SEC, they're 18-1 in SEC play. That's against the spread. So you are looking at a tremendous mismatch here, even though the media might build it up because they're both undefeated at this point. But Alabama's way better.
I think they are as well. I don't think I'm going to lay that kind of a number, especially since it's going up. But that's the side I'd look at. And they are capable of winning the game by 4 touchdowns. A&M's, the quality team. Maybe they can put some points on the board against Alabama. But Crimson Tide look like the best team in the country right now. All right. If you want to ask us any Vegas sports wagering questions, what you need to do is go to ProlineTV.com and then ask anything you want. It doesn't cost anything. And speaking of not costing anything, be sure to hit the subscribe button to get 7 days of action free.
Plus, go to jimfeist.com for free stats, articles, videos, my free fast facts, which are up and running now every week, plays from the nation's top handicappers as well.
All right, so let's move ahead, and we're going to look at some NFL Week 7 action, including the last remaining undefeated team, and they're heading to the city of brotherly love. Well, look, if the NFL were voting its Coach of the Year award based on the first 6 weeks of the season, Mike Zimmer would be a unanimous choice as Coach of the Year. The Vikings lose their quarterback in preseason, Teddy Bridgewater. Sean Hill has been there forever, but he's strictly a backup. They make the trade for Bradford. They gave up a lot to get him, but there was still a lot of skeptics out there saying, Bradford doesn't exactly have a great stat package. It's all working out pretty well for the Vikings right now. They're going into Philadelphia, where the Eagles, who were the talk of the NFL for the first 3 weeks, they've kind of slipped back the last couple of weeks, going to 3-2 now. Vikings going in as the favorite, and unless I'm missing something here, I think the Vikings are going to remain unbeaten.
Well, I think they're going to remain unbeaten also. I mean, you got a tremendous difference here in talent at the coaching level, in my opinion. And Minnesota's defense, they have some tremendous coaches on this team. Pat Shurmur is the offensive coordinator, but he's been the offensive coordinator with Bradford in St. Louis, in Philly, and now with Minnesota. I happen to think that he had a lot to do with choosing Bradford to come to Minnesota once Bridgewater got hurt. And, boy, that's working out real well. He's managing the game real well. And their defense has been incredible.
Well, and that's the problem for the Eagles. They really don't have a whole lot of offense. Carson Wentz is starting to find out what life is really like for a rookie in the NFL. I mean, and I think the kid's going to be a terrific quarterback. I really like his potential, but he's going to have some rough stretches against sophisticated defenses, and he will be facing an elite sophisticated defense this weekend in the Vikings. So I think it's going to be a long day for their offense. The numbers on Philadelphia's offense: number 22 in yards, number 26 in passing. They are number 4 in points, but I don't think those points are going to be coming as easily as we go along. And we were talking before we came back on about how lopsided the Washington game was last week. I mean, that was a blowout.
It was hard. When you go back to the previous game they lost, if it wasn't for Ryan Matthews fumbling the ball at the end, they would have won that game. So I was kind of impressed. That was a road game. Granted, they weren't playing the greatest team in the world, but that was when you went on the road, it's tough. But if it wasn't for that, I didn't downgrade them that much off that because of that end game fumble that just set the whole thing up. But last week, I had Washington. I had
him as well.
3-point underdog at home, 3.5 in some spots.
But I made the play based more on what I perceived as value because the line had opened 1.5 the other way. So it's like, you know what? I don't care about the money coming in because now I'm getting 4.5 points the best of it. I think I'm just going to go for that in the NFL. I didn't envision what took place.
No, I mean, you said it. We were talking about it earlier. They had a punt return for a touchdown and an interception for a touchdown. Eagles didn't do anything offensively. I think Wentz had 179 yards passing. And he was sacked, I believe, 5 times in the game. Now, Washington's pretty good, and they did win the division a year ago. Granted, there were some issues there with the Giants and Eagles and Cowboys. They had bad years. But Washington's playing decent, but I never imagined it would be that bad. Now you've got a real team here with some really good coaches. You got Turner, you got Shermer, you got the head coach in Zimmer. This is a well-coached football team. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't turn the ball over. They play very conservative ball.
Smart.
Yeah, they know how to win.
Yep.
And this is what wins in the end. Super Bowls are won by teams with good defenses, generally speaking, and don't turn the ball over a lot. And this is definitely a Super Bowl contender.
All right, the Seahawks are taking on the Arizona Cardinals. You know, Seattle's now 4-1, so they're actually getting off to a good start. They got a little help maybe from the officials last week, but the bottom line is they won the football game against Atlanta, slowed that team down. The Cardinals, they got a nice win, but it was against the Jets. Our old buddy Chipper used to call him the green slime, and boy, are they ever.
I'll bet you Chipper is still calling him.
Oh, yes, I'll bet you're right. That was ugly. So I don't know that I can really give Arizona any kind of a bump for that. I don't think this team has played good football. The Seahawks aren't dominating teams, but they're doing what it takes to win games, and that's really all it takes. The whole idea is to just win enough games to get to the playoffs and then play your best ball. I don't think this will be a game I play, but I'm at least looking at the Seattle side.
You know, let's look at it. This is a Sunday night game, 5:30 our time, 8:30 Eastern. It's a big game, national TV, primetime game on Sunday. Seattle, Arizona, game open 2.5 and 43.5. And it's 2. I see one place that's got 1. 75% of the bets are on Seattle.
Yep.
Which is interesting. Arizona's a good team. They have a lot of good talent. They're well coached. And they do have an older quarterback, Palmer, that's very fragile. And he has gone down a number of times. They have to run the ball and protect him somewhat because they can lose him quickly and then they drop off quite a bit to the second guy. But this Seattle team is not that impressive.
No, they don't look like a 4-1 team.
No, they don't, and they don't look like the Super Bowl team I thought they would look like. Their offensive line is pathetic.
Yep.
And they don't run the ball very well. This was a team that was getting 140, 150 yards a game.
No, Marshawn
2 years
Lynch
ago.
isn't there anymore.
They're under like 70 yards, 80 yards a game. This puts a lot of pressure on Wilson. I like Wilson. I think he's fantastic. But when you put that much pressure on a guy, you're really asking for trouble. And Arizona's a very tough place to play, and they're going to be geared up for this. This is a big – we talk about division games. Division games are the most important games for these pro football teams. These are the teams you have to beat if you want to win the division or get yourself in a position to get a wild card.
And this is a must-win for Arizona.
Oh, this is huge.
You know, they're going to be 3 games behind Seattle.
Yep.
At basically the halfway point of the season. That's tough to make up. So must game for Arizona. I'm just not sure they can get it.
Well, they're favored.
Yep.
You know, I think it's 77. Now it's 70. Just went up. 77% of the bets are on Seattle.
That's a little scary.
But that's bets. That's not money.
That's not money.
That's not a measurement of the money. You have to be careful with that. Where is the big money going to go in this game? We don't know that yet because it's a long time to Sunday.
We'll find out. Jim, viewers can get free plays from us right to their cell phone, and well, it can't be much easier.
That's right, Dave. Just text GAME, G-A-M-E, to 25827. You'll get a free play right now to your cell phone. That's GAME to 25827.
All right, let's continue with some NFL wagering notes. Plus, Brock Osweiler's return to Denver on Monday night, and that'll be fun to talk about.
They said they want to kill him. That's what one of the players said, that we wanted to kill him. And well, that's a little vicious.
He finally comes off something decent.
The last 4 minutes.
The last few minutes,
yeah.
And otherwise he was absolutely horrible. in that game against the Colts. But he did manage to play well at the finish. Now they got into overtime and they won the football game, so he can take a little confidence out of that. Now Osweiler, we talked about revenge earlier. There's some revenge for Osweiler here as well. I guarantee you, there's nobody he wants to beat more than the Denver Broncos. Because, look, you can have your own opinion on Brock Osweiler as to whether he's ever going to be any good or not, whether he's going to be average or just bad. But Brock Osweiler absolutely believes he should have been starting in the Super Bowl last year for the Denver Broncos, and don't let anybody tell you different. He might not come right out and say it, but that's the truth as a competitor. So this is the game for Osweiler. Unfortunately, I don't think he's good enough to beat the Broncos defense.
Well, there's a lot of questions on both sides of the ball here because I thought Osweiler should have been in the Super Bowl also. I didn't think Manning was the right guy. I think he had lost it. He did lose it. I mean, it was horrible. His season was horrible. His stats were horrible. He didn't play well in the Super Bowl. But they didn't need that because Carolina didn't show up the way they had played during the season, coming off a very weak schedule, obviously. But that's a different question. Osweiler played decent for Denver last year. A lot of drop passes by the wide receivers, which was very strange how they kept dropping everything. But he played better while he was with Denver and got replaced than he's been playing with Houston this year until the last 4 minutes last week. So who do we have here? They paid him $17 million. They paid him $72 million, guaranteeing half of that. Nice payday.
Ooh.
But they haven't got much for return so far. The Trevor Siemian issue here bothers me about trying to pick this game. And the reason that does is I'm not really too sure he is the answer. He has had a couple good games, but he doesn't stretch the field that much. He doesn't look like he has the confidence to stretch the field. And you don't win games in the NFL by dinking and dunking down the field. They got away with it in the Super Bowl with Manning, who couldn't throw the ball over 30 yards, and running the ball and playing good defense. I don't think that they're going to get away with it this year. They need to move that ball down the field. And he hasn't done that much. And he didn't look all that good last week either.
All right, so we're going to take a little NFL. This is going to play NFL pop quiz here. I'm going to fire a couple of questions at Jim. I haven't asked him. He has no idea what's coming here.
Oh boy.
And I'll also respond. But let's play first.
Can I take the fifth if I don't?
No. Carolina Panthers are 1-5 coming out of their Super Bowl loss. Are they toast?
Yes. I don't like the character of this team right now. Let's look at their team. Last year, they're 15-1 regular season. Played very well in the playoffs until they got to the Super Bowl, and then didn't play that well. But they did play a very good defense, so you got to give them credit for that. But Cam Newton, very talented physically. I don't know if he inspires as a leader. I don't see him in the clubhouse. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, when he gives a press conference, he is detrimental to the team, to the players, to the coaches, and to the city. He just doesn't come out with the kind of class and leadership that you need to have to inspire people. I've had people work for me for 40 or 50 years. You need to stand up and say, hey, I screwed up. We screwed up. We've got to get better. But you can't, you just don't act that way. In my opinion, they are toast. And here's another thing. They played one of the weakest, if not the weakest schedules last year to be 15-1. Remember who they had in their division: the Bucks, the Saints, and the Falcons, who were terrible last year. And they got to play each one of those teams twice. They're 15-1. Hats off to them. They beat the heck out of Arizona in the playoffs. They're toast.
All right, one more. And I'll plead guilty to this. We both are actually. We've made fun of the Ryans. Okay, we've made fun of Rex and we've made fun of Rob. They're playing really good football right now. So, are the Buffalo Bills for real?
Boy, it's hard.
It's a good question, isn't it? That's a good one.
It's really hard. It's really hard because they beat San Francisco last week. San Francisco's the worst team.
Oh, they're terrible.
in
But
the
they still
league.
beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, but it was kind of competitive for a while. You know, when you look at Rex Ryan and Rob Ryan and their history, their pedigree coming into this, you would have to say that they're probably overrated coaches. But after starting off kind of weak this year, they've actually turned it around and they're playing pretty well. They got some decent players on this team.
I don't want to take, look, I know Brissett was the quarterback and the Patriots were missing a bunch of guys, but it was 27-0 in Foxborough. That's still a really good win against any team that Bill Belichick coaches. And they haven't let up since. Maybe they got a little something going. I'm not putting the Bills in the Super Bowl or anything like that, don't get me wrong, but I think maybe a lot of our premature early conclusions that this was it, he's going to get fired, that's the end of that. Maybe not.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to talk about, we didn't plan to do this. They're going to Miami this week.
That's a big game for that team.
Miami this time of year is hot. It's hot and it's humid. I used to live there. This time of year, it's hot and humid in Miami. They're coming from Buffalo. It is not hot and humid in Buffalo.
No.
Okay? Now, a lot of teams go to Miami and fail because of the heat. 2 weeks ago, Miami played with 2 offensive linemen that are no longer in the league. They were that bad after they played their game the previous week, not the last week, previous week they got cut. They're out of the league. Nobody picked them up. Last week they got guys back on that offensive line and they looked good. Real good. Now granted, they were playing Pittsburgh and part of the game they were playing against a team without a real pro quarterback. Roethlisberger went down in that game. And Pittsburgh has a tendency from time to time to come up with a flat game. So everything with a grain of salt. Buffalo's coming off of beating San Francisco and beating New England in New England with Brissett. However, the mindset for New England in that game was perfect for Buffalo. Brady's coming back next week and we're going to Cleveland. We've already won 3 games. Everybody said if we go 2-2 these 4 games, it's great. We've already won 3, so what? And they got smoked. So I'm going to take what Buffalo's done with a grain of salt. And I'm going to say to you right now, they're laying 3 at Miami. They will lose the game on the field. Miami's going to beat them.
Now, if you want to get more free plays each day, aside from the one you just got, these are on a recorded message from our team of Vegas experts. Toll-free numbers 888-478-9222.
And you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Jim Feist Sports. And feel free to send me a direct message with any questions you may have.
And that's it. Thanks for joining us. We will see you again next week with another edition of Proline.